Hello, everybody. Welcome to It Was Tuesday, the podcast hosted by myself, aka James Chen, aka Jay Chenzor, all about fighting game stuff. We're talking here about the CPT new ruling on the Leverless Controllers that just came out and the drama that it has started to create here, because this is a pretty big rule change over here. So let's just get into reading this officially here from Capcom. Basically, they said, in anticipation of the 2023 season, Capcom has made the decision to update the Capcom Pro Tour rules in relation to leverless controllers. This was done to address consistency and fairness concerns. This rule change can be viewed on CapcomProTour.com. The complete rules for the season will be available closer to the start of CPT. We had some people help out with this and basically said, for easy reference here, basically you can see in this graphic here on their rules on CapcomProTour.com, it reads, levels of competitive fairness, end of a sentence. The new rule we are putting forth below is designed to ensure all leverless controllers operate to a universal standard regardless of make or model at Capcom sanctioned events. With this in mind, we decided to make the following change. If up and down directions are input at the same time, both inputs must be maintained or both inputs must be rejected. To clarify, if up and down inputs are made simultaneously, the character must not perform a jump or crouch action. And if the left and right inputs are made simultaneously, the character must not perform a forward or backward action. So essentially what they're saying is that they want up and down to have the same SOCD cleaning as left and right currently does. In case you don't know what that means, simultaneous opposing cardinal directions. I always forget what the third word is. But yeah, basically it's just saying controllers themselves, the hardware themselves, have the ability to control what happens if you hit left and right or up and down at the same time, which isn't possible on a joystick or on a control pad, except on some control pads that have the analog and the D-pad at the same time. Now, a lot of people have obviously been saying, you know, just let the game decide, who cares? But the problem is, if the hardware has already made the decision, the software has no idea, right? So Street Fighter 6 cannot handle up plus down from a Hitbox controller, because when Hitbox presses up and down at the same time, they are only sending up to the game. The game has no idea what controller you're using. All it knows is that it got an up input. That's the end of it. So Street Fighter 6 can't actually handle it anymore. So even if you have software level SOCD, thanks Gundam Jehudi Kai, SOCD, they basically can't do anything about it. They can do it for the pads, so now the pads can't do anything like that. So here's the thing, right? I already did a huge video on this a long time ago, talking about the hitbox, you know, people wanting hitbox bans or whatever like that, because it started becoming a big point of conversation. Obviously, it's entered back into the market over here. I see a lot of people in the chat saying like, man, I was just about to buy a hitbox. Now I'm not going to buy it anymore because of the, you know, now it's not going to be legal on the control. You know what? Oh, thank you. War Destroyer says that was a great video, by the way. Thank you. Appreciate that. I'm definitely trying to be very objective about this, but here's the thing. There's no reason not to get a hitbox, honestly. The hitbox is still going to work. Obviously, however, hitbox doesn't seem like they want to change, because they actually put out a tweet after that announcement. Where did they actually have, let's see, where is that tweet here? Yeah, here we go. Did they update it? Did they update it? Because originally there was a oh no, here it is. Here's the original statement here. Here we go. So it says, Regarding the CPT 2023 rule set, please know that we empathize with all of these new concerns and uncertainty for existing and new customers. This is still a developing situation, which we assure you has our full attention. We are confident that we will be able to provide a solution to our customers that will comply with any changes to rule sets. While Capcom and Street Fighter are an important part of the fighting game community, they do not represent the community as a whole. The larger tournament community and its leadership have already ruled many times over that the current SOCD resolutions in our controllers are appropriate for tournament play. We stand firmly by and believe in this standard, a standard that was set more than a decade ago and that is still implemented to this day. Up plus down equals up. So 8 plus 2 equals 8, as people joked here. And then they also had an update here where they said, we want to clarify any misunderstandings concerning the new SOCD guidelines and the CPT rule set. The hitbox currently resolves up plus down as up. This is not legal with the new CPT rules. We do have a new firmware to resolve up plus down as neutral to provide a solution for players competing in the CPT. However, we want to further test this firmware before a public release. This firmware legalizes the hitbox at CPT events. Our first and foremost concern is our customers and ensuring that they are prepared to play at CPT events. We stand firmly that our current SOCD model is the most balanced and practical setting for all fighting games. SOCD True Neutral will add more techniques to hitbox controllers than it removed. This is an important line. We will continue to support our community and our customers regardless of rule sets. We will have more updates as the conversation continues. Again, so as you can see, there's really no reason not to get a hitbox because, like, I think the junk food arcade boxes, like one of these guys over here, the micro that I have over here, shout outs to them. They sent me this a long time ago. It's a beautiful, beautiful controller. They've updated they've had some firmware updates, and I believe you can change it to whether it's it's whether 8 plus 2 equals 8 or 8 plus 2 equals 5, right? So whether the SOCD cleaning leads to up or leads to neutral, I think there's a way to switch the mode of it by plugging it into your computer, and you can set it that way. I believe Brook Adapter is probably going to do something like that. So even if you have a hitbox and let's say they didn't come out with the firmware, you could still buy the hitbox and actually because it'll get bypassed by the time it gets to the adapter. So never mind. So yeah, it's actually kind of, a lot of Hitbox users like, what are we going to do? But clearly Hitbox is going to put in a firmware update that allows you to change it. So it's not like they're being like, screw you, Capcom, we're doing it our way, you're done. Like, you can still buy a Hitbox. They'll have a firmware update for you guys. They just want to test it, make sure it doesn't cause any bugs. I'm sure they're also going to add the ability for you to switch between the two modes of it. So again, no reason to cancel any Hitbox orders or anything like that. It's still going to be there. However, having said that though, not even just one, I think the main thing is that I don't think this is a good ruling from CPT. I just actually don't think this is a good ruling because I already personally don't like left plus right equals neutral. I don't like having an alternate way to get to neutral. I do not like having an alternate way. So the problem is there is no input for neutral. You either have the controller at neutral or not. That's how you get neutral. By having this, it allows you to have access to neutral via an input. So for example, dashing in some games, you can actually hit forward and tap. You can hit right and tap left, and that'll cause you to dash because you can access a neutral by hitting both buttons. It's what creates a lot of those crazy hitbox shortcuts by hitting left plus right at the same time. You have a way to intentionally input neutral, which gives you some of these shortcuts. In a way to demonstrate that, let me show you a video that JB put out recently that was actually kind of funny over here. So he actually tried using the leverless design over here. And what he's doing now is, because up plus down equals neutral, he's holding down back and he's basically plinking jump with both of his thumbs. So he's holding down back and plinking with it. And so what this actually results in is when he's sitting there mashing on up, he creates neutral, not up. Hi, Nathan. He's creating neutral, not up. And so what you actually see here is this.
I'm blocking low right now, bro. He can't. Yo! Yo, I blocked the overhead too! Nah, bro, that's fucking broken, bro. Check this.
And so what happens here as a result is that even if you can still hit him with their crouching or overhead, it was just very lucky on JB. However, what this does is it takes away a high-low 50-50 mix-up, right? It's not about reading opponents. It's not about reacting. You, as a defender, can literally turn it into a true random 50-50. With no thought process at all whatsoever. So it's not about reading the opponent. It's not about, reacting to anything. It's literally when you're in a situation where there's a high-low mix-up coming, you can basically plink on up like this with your two fingers and make your character bounce up and down and turn it into a real true 50-50 without you having to think. Why? Because multiple buttons equaling neutral is a wrong problem. So the reason why this didn't work before is because if you hit up, you always jumped, because before it would work. So left right equals neutral is because they want to do that because there's so many advantages to being able to maintain one or the other, etc., etc. I'll get to that in a second. But up being up prevented that kind of situation. So we've actually created a situation that's theoretically worse with this new ruling. However, I said it in the last video that I did about this hitbox ban. There's an easy solution already. And Ozzy beat me to the punch here. But first input priority is already the solution. The reason why the Gaffro box was originally banned when Gaffro first created the box and Daigo started using it is because it was a last input priority. So with Guile, if I held back and tapped forward, the forward would win, but as soon as I let go, it would switch back to back. So if I held forward and tapped it, I can go sonic boom and start charging as fast as humanly possible, right? So here's the thing. That's last input priority. That is a valid SOCD cleaning program. It's not necessarily valid for tournaments, but it is a way to clean simultaneous inputs. First input priority is just the obvious answer in my opinion, because if I'm holding back and I hit forward, it only holds the first input. It doesn't care anymore about right. It just deads that button. As you're holding left, right is deaded, which is how joysticks work, or pads, because if you're holding left, you can't press right. So if you hold left, right becomes dead. If you hold right, left becomes dead. If you hold down, up becomes dead. If you hold up, down becomes dead. Like, that is called first input priority. However, the reason why a lot of people don't want first input priority is because it can make inputting things messy. So let's say I'm doing a half circle input. If I input it too quickly and I don't let go of left in time before I hit right, I will actually do back, down, and it just deads. Like the input doesn't register in there. However, just like Jico says, skill issue. This is just something you're gonna have to learn and deal with. It's the downside of using a leverless controller. I think first input priority is the right way to go. And yeah, like everybody's saying, oh, forcing better execution? Oh no, or get good. Absolutely, absolutely. First input priority is the solution. This is the right answer to all of the leverless controllers. And I don't know why we're not talking about this. If people are going to flash their hardware already to make it so that up plus down is now neutral, let's just change them all to first input priority. Why are we not talking about this more? Yes, there are leverless players that are like, I don't want that because it causes this problem, blah, blah, blah. No, like that just, it solves so many of the issues. And now left plus right doesn't equal neutral. This doesn't give us an alternate input to generate neutral, which kills a lot of the weird hitbox shortcuts that exist. Again, the ability to input neutral via a different button combination gives us the ability to find and cheat with new shortcuts. Last input priority gives us the ability to charge sonic booms as fast as possible. First input priority gives us very, very few advantages. Very, very, very few advantages. Unless somebody in the chat can be like, actually, the reason why we don't use first input priority, because it lets us do this. And if somebody can come in the chat and let me and say that and make me go, oh, then I will definitely change my tune. But when I talked about it the last time, nobody had that kind of comment. And so I just think honestly, I think it's the right way to go. I just think there's the right way to go. So it says left plus right equals neutral, up plus down equals neutral, alternate guard have existed in KOF for 25 plus years. How did you do left plus right and up plus down in KOF outside of dual controllers like the DualShock 2 and all that stuff like that? How could that have been for 25 plus years? I don't understand, because 25 plus years ago, we were playing on arcades and there was really no way to manually input that. Even if they did have that cleaning in the game, nobody had access to it. The problem right now is that we all have access to it via leverless controllers. So that's basically the idea here. So again, I don't know why this is such a big situation. First input priority, change all leverless controllers to follow that, and we're done. Like, it requires still skill for you to let go of back to make sure you charge the sonic boom properly and stuff like that. Oh, okay. Johnny29 says he's been playing on keyboard. Yes, emulators, keyboards, yes, okay. Totally makes sense, Johnny. I got you on that one. Okay. So emulators, we've been able to do that forever, but emulators obviously are not legal ways to play. And now, actually that doesn't even matter. It doesn't even matter. Yes, it's just how it's been this whole entire time. That's where the software SOCD, the reason why it wasn't a problem is a lot of times keyboards would overload input, so holding more than one button at a time would cause problems. Because I know when I played on MAME, that happened to me a lot in fighting games, for example. But now we have these controllers that are specifically designed for it. So thoughts on how the larger execution barrier hurts the growth of fighting game conversations fits into the leverless versus sticks. Larger execution barrier hurts the growth of fighting games. Donka, is that in reference to the conversation about how modern controls is going to be legal in Street Fighter 6 and how Project L is one button special moves? Because I saw Snake Eyes tweeting about that. He was like, does anybody have any proof that easier execution gets more people to play the fighting game? I kind of agree with Snake Eyes, but at the same time, I've seen people have trouble with it, but with motions. But the problem, honestly, is that our fighting games don't teach us motions, and which is why Street Fighter 6 is actually kind of exciting for me, because they literally have those mini games where they teach you how to do quarter circle forwards and quarter circle backs, etc., etc. Now, the thing about it is having one button special moves is obviously a huge advantage, as in the betas, we'll see how it changes when the game actually comes out. But in the beta for Street Fighter 6, modern controls nerfed all special moves by 80% damage. So even if you can walk up SPD, you're doing less damage. Even if you can one button DP, you're doing less damage. And so that's the question right now, is that did they in their tests also feel like it was too powerful? And if modern controls ends up being a problem and in a more effective way to play, does that mean they have to nerf it more, right? So weirdly enough, that 80% nerf to modern controls is a balance issue now, because it could turn out that it's too little, that maybe 80% is overdoing it. So now the players need a more damage buff because modern controls can't hang. Or maybe that means that modern controls is too good and that Zangief walk-up SPD is too powerful. Do they change it so it's a special move by special move basis? Are some things like fireballs increased to 90% damage, but SPD is lowered to 75% damage, right? We're opening a huge can of worms when it comes to balancing for modern controls. That is the issue. And so it's really, really kind of an interesting situation. Now, I've said it on commentary many times already, but they officially announced that modern controls is absolutely meant to be a viable way to play Street Fighter 6 in tournaments. So we'll see how that goes. But like I said, it's going to be a very, very interesting situation here when it comes to whether or not the modern controls end up being too strong. And yeah, exactly. 13-year-olds are going pro in Valorant, Fortnite, Rocket League, etc. I think we can trust them to do SRK inputs that classic way. I don't think the inputs are a problem because honestly, like I said, I mean, when we were younger, obviously it was very hard when the games first came out. Like the first time I did a DP, I was like, oh my God, you know, and then I was like even trying to get all gutsy and DP Bison Psycho Crusher, even though the computer went and like totally in the slow speed, totally signaled to you when the Psycho Crusher was coming. He would run him and go, Psycho Crusher, and I was like, okay, I'm across the screen, get ready to DP, and then he would go, Psycho Crusher, and I would go, DP, and you would drain all this life because he took extra damage during the Psycho Crusher, and I was like, oh my God, I'm a god. Like, obviously, yes, learning these motions is hard, but it's part of the game, and there's a reason that they exist, right? Like, the input that you give a character means something. There's something significant to it. There's a reason why Vampire Savior unified all guard reversals to DPs. There's a reason why, you know, there isn't very many backwards uppercut DPs anymore outside of Fei Long, because they realize it's a really powerful tool to be able to DP and block at the same time while you're blocking strings. Like, these kind of things like that are stuff that they realize. The inputs mean a big difference, and I prefer having them. For example, in Alpha 3, the reason why custom combos were broken is because there was no input motion, right? Every time you jumped, if I could just react with a button press, I could anti-air you for 50% of your life. Now, Xism and Aism had anti-air supers that had invulnerability. So why weren't those just as good? Having 3 bars, you jump, I level 3 you out of the air, because it required double quarter circle forward or double quarter circle back. You couldn't do it just in a moment's notice. Motions matter, right, to fighting games. They're important. So if we're adding modern controls here to Street Fighter 6, you have to balance around that. And so it's going to be really interesting to see exactly how it's going to play out. Again, having access to one button special moves is very, very powerful. Crouch activation on DPs, exactly like Mike Lee says in the chat, you know, there's a big deal to having that. So the interesting thing is that Street Fighter 6 already acknowledges that, in that the beta special moves are doing 80% damage. So I'm really curious to see how that's actually going to play out. Did they test it enough? Like, could they actually, like, it would be really interesting if they just ran matches and could replay the inputs and change the value of that 90-80% and see how often someone would win or not. Like, can you imagine getting 2, like, really good players playing against each other, not even with modern controls, but let's say they do play with modern controls against someone with traditional controls, and they just replayed the fight over and over and over and over again while tuning that damage to see how often one player wins over the other, etc. So it'd be really interesting to see if they did that kind of research and did that kind of data into determining that 80% is the right amount. But again, that is obviously another point of conversation that's different than this leverless ruling over here. But it is definitely part of this conversation because, you know, we're entering an era where things are very much changing, and we do have to adapt to these changes. It is very, very important that we adapt to these changes and see how it goes.